February 21, 1944, 1,000 B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-24 Liberators soar through the skies above Nazi Germany. Their explosive payloads plunge into key factories as air raid sirens howl and German troops marshal their defensive forces. It's a battle that could make or break the war for either side. But just as the German pilots are getting their boots on, an unfamiliar shape cleaves through the clouds at unimaginable aerial speeds. A Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II, the cutting-edge fifth-generation all-purpose weapon of war. It puts most other modern fighters to shame. So how could Nazi hardware stand up to the test? Could one modern plane turn the tide of the war? Find out on today's episode of the Infographic Show. What if an F-35 time-traveled to Germany during World War II? It started out as just another day for U.S. Air Force Captain Danny Gonzo Gonzowski. He was an experienced fighter pilot from an Air Force family in Brooklyn, New York, with 2 tours in Afghanistan under his belt. His reputation as a real brain surgeon in the cockpit had won him the privilege of test flying one of the Air Force's newest acquisitions, a modernized F-35 equipped with the advanced AN/APG-81 ASA radar, part of the sensor fusion suite array. But this routine test flight above Edwards Air Force Base in California was about to change Gonzo's world. It seemed like a freak weather event, a sudden flash of lightning splitting through the gathering clouds that he could have sworn weren't there seconds before. Before he could even radio it in, he was in another place, another time. From the clear skies above California to the sheer madness above Nazi Germany, a mix of American and British airmen were risking it all for the chance to cripple the Luftwaffe's plane manufacturing capabilities, targeting factories in Leipzig, Braunschweig, Gotha, Augsburg, Stuttgart, and Regensburg over a 5-day mission dubbed Operation Argument. The new objective was as simple as it was high stakes. If they could destroy Germany's ability to produce new planes, the Allies and General Eisenhower would have one less thing to worry about. Gonzo couldn't believe his eyes. Had he lost his mind? He could see the Allied bombers raining hell on the Messerschmitt factories down below. Flak 38 light anti-air guns peppered the skies with thousands of 20mm rounds. Larger Flak 36 cannons reared their immense barrels and fired explosive 88mm projectiles into the fray, staining the sky with razor-edge shrapnel. And if this wasn't chaotic enough, thousands of Messerschmitt Bf-109s, the iron fist of the Luftwaffe, were scrambled to defend the industrial arm of the Nazi war machine. But the B-17s and B-24s weren't just sitting ducks. They had 700 Allied fighters backing them up, including the Lockheed P-38 Lightnings, Republic P-47 Thunderbirds, American P-51 Mustangs, and now, one modern-day F-35. Gonzo didn't need any persuading to join in the fight. It was more than just duty and national pride. He had skin in the game. A descendant of Polish Jews persecuted by the SS, his own great-grandpa was one of the 28 fighters downed over Operation Argument. He remembered the words of Air Force Marshal Bomber Harris that he had read in history books about this battle. "We can wreck Berlin from end to end. If the US AAF will come into it, it will cost us between 400 and 500 aircraft. It will cost Germany the war." And that is exactly what he was going to do. The F-35 descended on its prey at speeds of Mach 1.6 or 1,200 miles per hour. It also had aligned edges, a reduced engine signature, and embedded sensors that give this beast unparalleled stealth performance for a fighter. It slipped into the airspace like a whisper in the night and quickly dominated. Gonzo swooped in and opened fire onto the hapless Nazi fighters with the F-35's 25mm GAU-22A Gatling gun, the 4-barreled beast known as the Equalizer. But there was nothing equal about this fight. The Messerschmitt had top speeds of 330 miles per hour, impressive for its day, but not even half as fast as the Supersonic F-35. Gonzo let rip on the Equalizer, firing off at a rate of 3,300 rounds per minute, with a maximum firing range of 12,000 feet. By comparison, the largest conventional arms on the Messerschmitt were the 2 synchronized MG-131 machine guns, with a paltry max firing range of 6,000 feet and a firing rate of 900 rounds per minute. In other words, the F-35 can blow that German antique out of the sky for thousands of feet before it could even dream of returning fire, and Gonzo took full advantage of that. The 25mm Namo Apex rounds shredded the bodies of the Messerschmitts, eviscerating the pilots inside before the engine explosions finished the job. He zipped from target to target, turning each one into a ball of fire with only a light squeeze of the trigger. His rounds had tungsten carbide penetrators in the tip and an explosive fragmentation body, making mincemeat out of the Messerschmitts with a single tight burst of fire. And with 180 rounds in the tank, that meant plenty of dead Nazis. The Allies could not believe their eyes. It was like some alien machine crashed the battlefield and started fighting for their cause. Nothing could move like that. It was a force multiplier for the Allies that had the Luftwaffe terrified already. But the threats weren't just from the other planes. They also came from below, from the barrages of anti-aircraft munitions surging up from below. Gonzo could see his U.S. Air Force forerunners struggling to avoid the relentless onslaught and decided that maybe he could save some lives by taking the pressure off, a task that the F-35 was perfectly suited for. Gonzo zeroed in on one of the Flak 36 cannons, surrounded by swarming troops carrying in more of the deadly 88mm explosive rounds, every Allied fighter's worst enemy. Even if you survive the explosion, you might get your wings or cockpit ripped to shreds by the shrapnel, sending you cascading down to your doom in enemy territory. Every single one of them taken out of commission was an Allied life potentially saved. With the F-35 helmet, the cannon practically aimed itself rather than a traditional heads-up display. The helmet projected targeting information along with airspeed, heading, altitude, and warnings directly onto the visor. Thanks to the unprecedented sensor fusion system, Gonzo would be simultaneously and seamlessly experiencing data feeds from the various radar and targeting systems. This all added up to scalpel edge accuracy, perfect for what Gonzo planned to do next. He picked his moment and unleashed one of two 2,000-pound JDAM WW2s. The bomb arced straight for the anti-air cannon, turning it and everyone around it into an intense fireball. Compared to the less than 600-pound bombs dropped by the Messerschmitts, it was an absolutely devastating assault that sent the Nazi infantry running for the hills. The 20mm rounds of the Flak Vierling 38s couldn't even hope to keep up with Gonzo's supersonic speeds. It's like trying to shoot a ghost out of the sky. Word reached the nearby hangars at the Luftwaffe base in Leipzig of this alien element that had entered the fray. Even as British and American bombers were sending fusillades of explosives down onto their manufacturing infrastructure, the orders had changed. Blow that UFO out of the sky at all costs. If the Nazis could somehow get their hands on it, study it, and replicate the technology, they might just be able to turn the tide of the war back in their favor. But of course, they would need to catch it first. Gonzo and his F-35 were in the process of changing the course of history already. During the opening days of the Big Week, the contemporary nickname for Operation Argument, he had the Luftwaffe's undivided attention. A swarm of furious Messerschmitts took to the sky and began zeroing in on his location. The one advantage they had over him was the sheer numbers. The F-35 was a beast that dominated the air, but it was never designed to do so alone. It boasted 180 rounds in its equalizer, 2 JDAM bombs, and 2 AIM-120 CD air-to-air missiles. In a one-on-one engagement, it could smoke anything on the battlefield. But when up against more planes than it had munitions, problems started to develop. And given it was caught out of time and in the middle of enemy territory, there was nowhere he could safely land and reload. And while the fighter's combat radius of 590 nautical miles was leagues better than an individual Messerschmitt's combat radius of around 162 nautical miles, Gonzo wasn't naive enough to believe that he could fly forever on evasive tactics alone. The JP-8 fuel that the F-35 burned through with frightening speed literally had not been invented yet. Eventually, as Newton once wrote, "What goes up must come down." But while Gonzo may have been the only F-35 pilot in this intense aerial battle, he was by no means alone. The Allies may not have been able to recognize his hardware, but the pilots of the U.S. Air Force and the RAF were intuitive enough to see that he was only attacking Luftwaffe planes. And as the Messerschmitts marshaled against him, the P-38 Lightnings, Republic P-47 Thunderbirds, and P-51 Mustangs ran cover, picking off the Messerschmitts with missiles and machine guns while in pursuit. In this symphony of combat, Gonzo's F-35 was setting the tempo gloriously. Seeing a formation of Messerschmitts down below, he fired one of his AIM-120 CD air-to-air missiles. These lethal 12-foot juggernauts of aerial warfare cost over $1 million per unit, and they're worth every penny. They move at Mach 4, double the speed of the F-35 itself, with little to no visible trail. It would be literally impossible for even the best pilot in the entire Luftwaffe to evade one in its operational range of between 60 to 86 nautical miles. Gonzo let it rip. Seconds later, the Nazi formation erupted in a blinding explosion, tearing it apart and sending German planes spiraling earthward in flaming wrecks. The Nazi dogfighters didn't even know where these munitions were coming from. Unlike even 4th-gen fighters of the modern day, the F-35 carries all of its payloads internally for a sleek look and enhanced stealth. It's like a black scythe, slicing through the air with ease. The electronic warfare system would leave it effectively invisible to World War II-era radars, while also blocking electronic communication. Gonzo pressed the attack, cutting through German formations as flak bursts bloomed around him. He banked hard, lining up the next helpless Nazi pilot, when alarm suddenly screamed across his HUD. A lucky burst from a flak 36 battery below had clipped his left wing, peppering the fuselage with shrapnel. Warning lights flared across the visor. Hydraulic pressure falling, stabilizer compromised. The F-35 bucked violently as he fought for control, the stick shuddering in his hands. A single hit like that would have shredded a World War II plane to ribbons, but this wasn't any plane. Gonzo rerouted power, forcing the jet back into line as he clawed back into a steady climb. That was a close call, proof that no one was invincible. Not even here. It only hardened Gonzo's resolve to finish the mission. A righteous sense of justice settled into the cockpit as he carried out his rampage against the Luftwaffe. He thought about his people in Poland, displaced, imprisoned, tortured, and murdered by the genocidal Nazi death machine. He thought of his great-grandpa shot down in this very battle, fighting for them. He thought of all the principles he held dear, and in that moment he knew exactly what he needed to do. The explosives being dropped by the Allied bombers were powerful, but their carpet bombing techniques were imprecise, too scattered. But Gonzo had one 2,000-pound JDAM in the proverbial chamber. Could the Leipzig Messerschmitt factory withstand a hit from that? There was one way to find out. He dived toward the factory, effortlessly weaving between the Messerschmitts and the inept volleys of anti-aircraft fire from the ground. Using every advanced targeting system at his disposal, he locked onto the factory's core and dropped the JDAM. It struck true. The building was swallowed by a rolling wave of fire. In his historical studies of the event, the Big Week had delayed the Nazi war machine, but not stopped it in its tracks. Today, Gonzo changed the course of history. The victory of the Allies in this battle had not just been decisive, but crushing. The morale of the Germans would forever be shaken by knowing that such an incredible force was somehow working on the side of their enemies. High above, Gonzo spotted a strange cloud formation, alive with pearls of crackling lightning. It looked just like the one that had brought him here. With his fuel gauge in the red, he gunned the throttle. Maybe it could take him home, where he could tell a story that nobody on Earth would ever believe. As Gonzo peeled away from the flaming wreck that had once been the Messerschmitt manufacturing plant, he saw the Allied fighters swarming up around him. They were desperate to get a better look at their mysterious, technologically advanced savior. He felt touched to even be in the presence of these brave pilots who'd helped make the world he knew possible. And looking down into one of their cockpits, he saw a face that he could swear he recognized from old family photo albums. Maybe, thanks to his work in the F-35, his great-grandpa would get to come home this time. Now, check out what if a single B-2 bomber time-traveled to Germany during World War II? Or watch this instead.